Mira was ignored by a famous producer until a shocking truth came to light. The Chateau Marmont buzzed with the low hum of Hollywood ambition. Mira, clutching her worn leather portfolio, felt like a misplaced extra in a film she desperately wanted to star in. Tonight was the night. She had managed, through a series of improbable connections and favors called in, to secure a 5-minute meeting with Damian Blackwood, the most powerful producer in the industry. Blackwood, the man who could greenlight a project with a snap of his fingers, the architect of countless careers, the titan whose name alone guaranteed box office gold. She had rehearsed her pitch 1,000 times, polished her presentation until it gleamed, and chosen her outfit with agonizing care, a simple black dress that she hoped projected both professionalism and a hint of artistic flair. But as she stood just inside the crowded lobby, watching Blackwood hold court near the bar, surrounded by a sycophantic entourage, her confidence began to crumble. He was exactly as she imagined, impeccably dressed in a dark suit, his silver hair neatly coiffed, his eyes sharp and calculating behind designer glasses. He radiated an aura of effortless power, a man accustomed to being the center of attention. He laughed, a deep, resonant sound that seemed to vibrate through the room, and Mira felt a shiver run down her spine. When her name was finally called by a harried-looking assistant, Mira's heart leaped into her throat. She took a deep breath and approached Blackwood, extending her hand. "Mr. Blackwood, thank you so much for seeing me. My name is Mira." Blackwood barely glanced at her. He shook her hand quickly, his grip perfunctory, his attention already drifting back to the conversation he had been having. Yes, Mira. 5 minutes. Impress me." He gestured vaguely towards a small table tucked away in a dimly lit corner. Mira swallowed her disappointment and followed him. As they sat down, the noise of the party seemed to fade into a distant hum. This was it. Her chance. She opened her portfolio and began to speak, her voice trembling slightly at first, but gaining strength as she described her project, a gritty, character-driven drama about a struggling artist in Los Angeles, a story born from her own experiences. She spoke with passion, her eyes shining with the conviction that this was a story that needed to be told, a story that would resonate with audiences. She showed him concept art, character sketches, and a meticulously crafted synopsis. Blackwood listened, or rather, appeared to listen. His gaze wandered around the room, he occasionally glanced at his watch, and he interrupted her several times to answer calls on his phone. He offered no encouragement, no feedback, no sign that he was even remotely interested. 5 minutes turned into 10, then 15, but Blackwood remained impassive. Mira felt her hope draining away with each passing second. It was clear he wasn't listening. He was simply tolerating her presence, waiting for her to finish so he could move on to someone more important. Finally, she trailed off, her voice barely a whisper. "So, what do you think, Mr. Blackwood?" Blackwood sighed dramatically. "Look, Mira," he said, his tone dismissive. "It's a nice story, I'm sure. But it's not commercial. It's not what the market wants. We need superheroes, explosions, bankable stars. Not some artsy, navel-gazing drama about a struggling artist. Thanks for your time." He stood up, signaling the end of the meeting. Mira felt a wave of humiliation wash over her. She had poured her heart and soul into this project, and he had dismissed it in less than a minute. She gathered her portfolio, her hands shaking, and mumbled a thank you. As she turned to leave, she saw Blackwood already engrossed in conversation with a stunning blonde actress, his arm draped casually around her shoulders. Dejected, Mira walked out of the Chateau Marmont and into the cool night air. The city lights seemed to mock her dreams. She had come so close, only to be rejected so brutally. Was this the reality of Hollywood? Was talent and passion simply not enough? Days turned into weeks, and Mira struggled to shake off the disappointment. She continued to work on her project, but the spark had dimmed. Blackwood's words echoed in her mind, questioning her abilities, her vision. She started to doubt herself, wondering if she was simply delusional to think she could make it in this cutthroat industry. One afternoon, while working her part-time job as a barista at a small coffee shop in Silver Lake, a regular customer, an elderly man named Mr. Olson, noticed her downcast mood. Mr. Olson was a quiet, unassuming man, but he had a kind face and a gentle demeanor. He was also, as Mira later discovered, a retired screenwriter. "You seem troubled, dear," he said, as he waited for his usual black coffee. Mira hesitated, then decided to confide in him. She told him about her meeting with Blackwood, about her crushed dreams, and about her growing self-doubt. Mr. Olson listened patiently, his eyes filled with understanding. When she finished, he smiled gently. "Don't give up, Mira," he said. "Blackwood is just one man. His opinion is not the gospel truth. There are other avenues, other ways to get your story told." He then told her about his own experiences in Hollywood, about the countless rejections he had faced, and about the importance of perseverance. He encouraged her to keep writing, to keep creating, to never lose faith in her vision. Inspired by Mr. Olson's words, Mira decided to take a different approach. She stopped focusing on Blackwood and started looking for smaller, independent production companies. She attended film festivals, networked with other aspiring filmmakers, and submitted her script to various competitions. Slowly but surely, things began to change. Her script started to gain attention. She received positive feedback from several producers who were genuinely interested in her story. She even won a small grant that allowed her to shoot a short film based on a scene from her script. The short film was a success. It was screened at several film festivals and received critical acclaim. It caught the attention of a small but ambitious production company that offered Mira the opportunity to direct her feature film. Finally, her dream was coming true. She assembled a talented cast and crew, and began filming her movie. It was a challenging and demanding process, but Mira poured her heart and soul into every scene. She was determined to prove Blackwood wrong. The film, titled Echoes of Silver, was released to critical acclaim. It was a box office success, resonating with audiences who were tired of the same old Hollywood formulas. Mira was hailed as a visionary new talent, a filmmaker with a unique voice and a powerful story to tell. Echoes of Silver became the indie darling of the year, garnering numerous awards and nominations, including a coveted nomination for Best Original Screenplay at the Academy Awards. Now, fast forward to the night of the Oscars. Mira, radiating confidence and dressed in a stunning gown, walked the red carpet, surrounded by flashing cameras and adoring fans. She had come a long way from that humiliating meeting at the Chateau Marmont. As she made her way inside the Dolby Theatre, she spotted Damian Blackwood standing near the entrance, surrounded by his usual entourage. He saw her too. His eyes widened slightly, a flicker of surprise crossing his face. He approached her, a forced smile on his lips. "Mira," he said, extending his hand. "Congratulations on your success. I always knew you had talent." Mira looked at him, her eyes filled with a mixture of amusement and disdain. She shook his hand, her grip firm and confident. "Thank you, Mr. Blackwood," she said. "I appreciate your support." She paused, then added, "You know, it's funny. I always thought my story wasn't commercial enough. But it seems like people are actually interested in real stories, stories that touch their hearts." Blackwood's smile faltered. He clearly didn't know what to say. Mira excused herself and walked away, leaving Blackwood standing there, speechless. As she walked towards her seat, she felt a sense of triumph, not just over Blackwood, but over all the doubters and naysayers who had told her she couldn't do it. But the real shock came later that evening. During a commercial break, Mira excused herself to the restroom. As she washed her hands, she overheard two women talking. "Did you hear about Damian Blackwood?" one whispered to the other. "Apparently, his career is in freefall. His last 3 movies bombed, and the studio is threatening to pull his funding." "No way," the other woman exclaimed. "What happened?" "Well," the first woman continued, lowering her voice even further, "I heard he's been making some questionable decisions. Apparently, he's been relying on some insiders for tips on what's going to be big, and their advice has been disastrous. He's lost his touch, they say." Mira felt a pang of sympathy for Blackwood, despite everything. She knew what it was like to be on the verge of losing everything. But then, she heard something that made her stop dead in her tracks. And get this, the first woman said, her voice barely audible above the sound of the hand dryers. Apparently, Damian Blackwood isn't even his real name. He changed it years ago to sound more Hollywood. His real name is David Olson. Mira gasped. David Olson. Mr. Olson, the elderly screenwriter who had encouraged her to never give up, the man who had given her the confidence to pursue her dreams. Mr. Olson was Damian Blackwood. The realization hit her like a ton of bricks. Blackwood hadn't ignored her because her story wasn't good enough. He had ignored her because he was ashamed of his past, of the struggling artist he once was. He had reinvented himself as Damian Blackwood, the king of commercial cinema, and he didn't want to be reminded of his humble beginnings. But why hadn't he revealed himself? Why had he chosen to encourage her anonymously, through a persona he had seemingly abandoned? The answer, Mira realized, was complex and deeply human. Perhaps he was ashamed, as she suspected. But perhaps he was also afraid. Afraid that revealing his true identity would shatter the carefully constructed image he had created. Afraid that people would see him as a fraud, as someone who had betrayed his artistic roots. And perhaps, deep down, he was also proud of her. Proud that she had succeeded where he had failed, proud that she had stayed true to her vision, proud that she had proven him wrong. As Mira walked back to her seat, her mind was racing. She couldn't believe what she had just learned. The man who had dismissed her so cruelly was the same man who had given her the encouragement she needed to succeed. When her name was called as the winner of the Academy Award for Best Original Screenplay, Mira walked to the stage, her heart filled with a mix of emotions. She thanked her family, her friends, her cast and crew. And then, she paused, took a deep breath, and looked directly at Damian Blackwood, who was sitting in the audience, his face unreadable. "I also want to thank someone who believed in me when I didn't believe in myself," she said, her voice filled with emotion. "Someone who gave me the courage to pursue my dreams, even when I felt like giving up. Someone who reminded me that the most important thing is to stay true to your vision, to tell your story, no matter what." She didn't mention his name. She didn't need to. He knew who she was talking about. "Thank you, David Olson," she said, her voice barely a whisper. Blackwood's eyes filled with tears. He nodded slowly, a single tear rolling down his cheek. In that moment, Mira understood that success wasn't just about winning awards or making money. It was about staying true to yourself, about never giving up on your dreams, and about recognizing the people who helped you along the way, even if they did so in unexpected ways. The shocking truth had not only revealed Blackwood's past, but it had also revealed the complex nature of human ambition, the power of forgiveness, and the enduring importance of believing in yourself. As the applause thundered around her, Mira smiled. She had finally found her place in Hollywood, not by conforming to its rules, but by breaking them. And she knew, with absolute certainty, that her story was just beginning. The journey had been long and arduous, filled with rejection and disappointment, but it had also been filled with hope, perseverance, and the unwavering belief in the power of storytelling. And that, she realized, was the most important thing of all. Mira listened intently, her heart filled with a mixture of anger and compassion. She understood his fear, his regret, his desire to protect himself. But she also knew that his actions had caused her immense pain. "I forgive you, Mr. Olson," she said finally. "But I also want you to understand the impact your words had on me. They almost made me give up on my dreams." He nodded slowly. "I know," he said. "And I will never forgive myself for that." They sat in silence for a moment, the air thick with unspoken emotions. Then, Mira had an idea. "Mr. Olson," she said, "I'm working on a new project. It's a story about a struggling screenwriter who loses his way, who compromises his artistic integrity in pursuit of fame and fortune. But it's also a story about redemption, about finding your way back to your true self." He looked at her, his eyes widening with understanding. "I would like you to help me write it," Mira said. "I think your experiences, your insights, would be invaluable." He stared at her, speechless. You want me to help you," he stammered. Mira smiled. "Yes," she said. "I think we could create something truly special together." A story that is both honest and inspiring. A story that will resonate with audiences who are tired of the same old Hollywood formulas. He hesitated for a moment, then nodded slowly. I would be honored, Mira, he said, his voice filled with emotion. Truly honored. And so, Mira and David Olson began to collaborate on their new project. It was a challenging and demanding process, but it was also incredibly rewarding. They argued, they debated, they challenged each other, but they also learned from each other, they grew together, and they forged a deep and lasting bond. David Olson, freed from the shackles of his Damian Blackwood persona, rediscovered his passion for storytelling. He brought his years of experience, his hard-earned wisdom, and his raw honesty to the project. He helped Mira to craft a story that was both authentic and compelling, a story that explored the complexities of human ambition, the corrosive power of fame, and the enduring importance of staying true to yourself. The film, titled The Price of Gold, was a critical and commercial success. It was nominated for several Academy Awards, including Best Original Screenplay. This time, when Mira and David Olson walked to the stage to accept their Oscar, they did so hand in hand, their faces beaming with pride and gratitude. In her acceptance speech, Mira spoke about the importance of forgiveness, about the transformative power of collaboration, and about the enduring strength of the human spirit. And David Olson, standing beside her, finally felt like he had come home. He had found redemption, not by erasing his past, but by embracing it. He had learned that true success wasn't about fame or fortune, but about living a life of purpose and meaning, about using your talents to make a positive impact on the world. The shocking truth that had once threatened to destroy Mira's career had ultimately brought her closer to David Olson, and together, they had created something truly extraordinary. Their story became a testament to the power of second chances, a reminder that it's never too late to find your way back to your true self. And it all started with a young artist who refused to give up on her dreams, even when she was ignored by a famous producer. Years later, Mira established a foundation dedicated to supporting aspiring filmmakers from underprivileged backgrounds. She wanted to create opportunities for young artists who didn't have the connections or resources to break into the industry. She wanted to ensure that no one else had to endure the same kind of rejection and disappointment that she had faced. David Olson became a mentor to these young filmmakers, sharing his wisdom and experience, and helping them to navigate the treacherous waters of Hollywood. He taught them the importance of staying true to their vision, of never compromising their artistic integrity, and of always believing in themselves. And so, the legacy of Mira and David Olson continued to inspire generations of filmmakers, proving that even in the cutthroat world of Hollywood, talent, passion, and perseverance can ultimately triumph over cynicism, greed, and self-doubt. The story, once seemingly about rejection, became a powerful narrative about redemption, collaboration, and the enduring power of human connection. The shocking truth, in the end, illuminated not just the past, but the path forward, a path paved with authenticity, forgiveness, and unwavering belief in the power of storytelling. Colors of Home became a cultural phenomenon, earning numerous awards and nominations, including a prestigious nomination for Best Director at the Academy Awards. On the night of the Oscars, Anya stood on the red carpet, surrounded by flashing cameras and adoring fans. She looked at Mira and David Olson, who were standing beside her, their faces beaming with pride. She knew that she wouldn't be there without their support, their guidance, and their unwavering belief in her. As she walked into the Dolby Theater, Anya couldn't help but reflect on the journey that had brought her there. She had started out as a young woman with a story to tell, a story that many people had deemed too niche, too controversial, too risky. But she had refused to give up on her dreams, and she had found the support she needed to make her voice heard. When Anya's name was called as the winner of the Academy Award for Best Director, she walked to the stage, her heart filled with gratitude. She thanked her family, her friends, her cast and crew, and especially Mira and David Olson. "This award is not just for me," she said, her voice filled with emotion. "It's for all the young filmmakers out there who have a story to tell, but who don't have the resources or the opportunities to make their voices heard. Don't give up on your dreams. Believe in yourselves. And never let anyone tell you that your story doesn't matter." As the applause thundered around her, Anya looked at Mira and David Olson, and she knew that their legacy would continue to inspire generations of filmmakers to come. They had created a ripple effect of creativity, empowerment, and social change, proving that even in the face of adversity, the power of storytelling can transform the world. Later that evening, at the after-party, Mira and David Olson were approached by a young man who introduced himself as Damian Blackwood Jr. He explained that he had been following Mira's career and the work of her foundation with great interest. "My father," he said, "told me a lot about you, Mira. He regrets the way he treated you early in your career. He always said that you were one of the most talented people he had ever met." Mira was surprised by Damian Jr.'s words. She had never expected to hear anything positive about her from the Blackwood family. "My father is not a perfect man," Damian Jr. continued, "but he has learned a lot from his mistakes. He admires the work you are doing with your foundation, and he wants to help." He then presented Mira with a check for a substantial amount of money, a donation from Damian Blackwood Sr. to support the foundation's work. Mira was deeply touched by the gesture. She realized that even someone who had once been her adversary could change, could learn, and could contribute to something positive. As she looked at David Olson, she knew that their story had come full circle. They had faced rejection, betrayal, and self-doubt, but they had emerged stronger, wiser, and more determined than ever to make a difference in the world. The shocking truth that had once threatened to derail Mira's career had ultimately led her to a place of purpose, fulfillment, and lasting impact. And it all started with a young artist who refused to be ignored, who dared to dream big, and who never gave up on her belief in the power of storytelling. The final scene fades on a montage of young filmmakers, empowered by Mira's foundation, creating their own stories, their voices echoing with authenticity and passion, a testament to the enduring legacy of a woman who was once ignored, but who ultimately changed the face of Hollywood forever. The camera pulls back, showing the bustling city of Los Angeles, a city of dreams, a city of second chances, a city where anything is possible if you dare to believe.